Well, welcome back, critical thinkers. Today we're going to cover our last topic before the third exam, which is social media. We've covered the mass media, which is sort of information coming from newspapers or books or television or movies, coming from sort of central sources and hoping to reach a mass appeal, right? However, there is also social media now, right? Facebook, YouTube, Imgur, Tumblr, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, right? All those things are sort of social media. And so make sure you have the lecture notes entitled Social Media open, right? And as sort of a working phrase that I think really encapsulates the message I want to leave you with after today's lecture is a critical thinker knows that if you say it, you can forget it. But if you write it down, you may regret it, right? Say it, forget it, write it, regret it. And that's the big thing with social media. It's different from the mass media. And in some ways, it's this really powerful, amazing tool, right? We don't have to rely on a central source of information to get the news or get information or to get opinions. We don't have to wait for Walter Cronkite, who is a guy in the 60s for some young folks out there. We don't have to wait for Walter Cronkite to tell us what's going on in the world. We can sort of tell each other, right? And big social movements can be created and sustained using social media, right? They talked about how social media, Facebook, and similar websites are part of what was behind some of the big uprisings during the Arab Spring. And so it is a good thing. It's a powerful thing, but it comes with risks, right? The online world, particularly social media, comes with risks. So moving on to slide 2, let's just sort of look at some base rate information. Now this is from 2015 when I pulled this information. I'm sure these numbers are higher now, right? But as of 2015, 24 of online adults were using social media. So of the people who had the internet, 74% of them were a member in 2015 of some sort of social network. And 72% of everyone with the internet, 72% of everyone with the internet has specifically a Facebook account. Right? Every year, I think I'm going to have to stop talking about Facebook because something else will be the new big thing. And every year I don't have to do that because Facebook is still this really big thing. 99% of students at Pierce use social networking in some capacity. And even the rare person who says, no, I don't have a Twitter account, I don't have a Facebook account, I don't follow anyone on Instagram, I don't look at Tumblr feeds, none of it, usually watches a YouTube video occasionally. And guess what? That is social networking, right? So all the things. And as of about a year ago, there were 1.35 billion active users on Facebook. That was a year ago, right? So what do we mean by an active user? There's only 7 billion people on the planet, right? So 1.35 billion is a lot. So an active user is going to be a unique individual with a unique screen name who has a unique IP address, meaning they appear to be coming from a unique source, right? And who has logged in the last 30 days. So 1.35 billion people are uniquely logging into Facebook at least once a month. Almost a billion of which 864 million people log in every single day. That was as of last year. And 400 million or more are logging in with their phones. That's almost certainly an underestimate now, because this, again, is from last year, 2015. When you look at sort of who is Facebook growing, right? What kind of users are being added to Facebook roles? It's a lot of older users. But younger users don't appear to be going away. People who signed up for Facebook in 2008, 2009 are still using Facebook. Arguably, you may have some younger users not choosing to log on to Facebook, but that trend doesn't appear to be very robust. Right, so you have more and more people older logging into Facebook and then using it. In 2009, there was this giant, almost 1,000% spike in older users, and every year there's been almost 100% growth among this older group, without the loss of the younger people, which is sort of an amazing feat when you think about it. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that younger people can choose who to be friends with, and a lot of younger people create like multiple Facebook accounts. They've got like a grandma friendly account and like a friend friendly account, right? To like, and so they're not seeing this huge falling away of younger people away from Facebook, while you do add these older people, which is just, it's an accomplishment in and of itself, right? So moving on to slide 3, how could you theoretically communicate with someone, right? Think about how people communicate with each other and how they've communicated with each other historically, right? Historically, if we wanted to communicate with somebody who wasn't right next to us, we would have had to sit down and write them a letter. I don't know the last time I received a letter that wasn't a bill or a birthday card, right? It's just not something people do, right? You can write someone an email. And if you're writing me emails, I strongly suggest you learn how to use professional email etiquette. College is a professional environment, and so strongly recommend you do that, right? Because an email often reads like a letter, right? It often reads like a letter. And so trying to be more aware and appropriate with grammar and punctuation and greetings becomes important. We could talk to each other on the phone, right? I could talk to you on my cell phone. I could talk to you from my office, theoretically. I could call you on Skype or Google Chat, one of these many voice devices, right? There used to be this ancient technology called instant messaging. I guess you could theoretically still do that on Facebook, or AOL used to be a thing forever ago. But you can instant message someone, and people sometimes use these services. You can text people. Texting used to have to be done in these sort of broken characters. I can text you, LOL. And nowadays our smartphones are capable of like auto-completing our words for us. And so this sort of ancient way of communicating, I can text you, is sort of going away, as it should, maybe, when you're texting. And you can do complete sentences. Maybe you ought to do that since it's so easy with our smartphones now. That's the idea. You can follow people, right? And that's a way of communication, right? You can follow people on Twitter and Instagram, and then really it's a two-way communication, right? Like when I follow somebody on Twitter, I can reply to their tweets, and they can see my tweets or see my replies to their tweets. And so it's just really this social aspect of modern communication. And you could, in fact, talk to someone standing right next to you. So if you've never heard of Facebook, here on slide 4 is the login page or the sign up page. And not that I am at all suggesting that you go and sign up for Facebook. Facebook's original mission statement was that it was going to give people the power to share and make the world more open and connected, right? Of course, they're a business, and their model is to make money, right? They're not a not-for-profit organization, but they want to sort of monetize, which means make a money-making venture out of this idea of connecting people together, right? And in this really open space, right? That's sort of their mission, and to some extent, they've been largely successful at that. Twitter is another social networking site. Here is a web page from Twitter from 2014 when I grabbed this. This is the sign up page that was that day that I pulled it. And Twitter's very first mission statement was, Twitter is a service for friends, family, and coworkers to communicate and stay connected through the exchange of quick and frequent answers to one simple question. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Right? Twitter is like the stream of consciousness idea, right? there are others out there, though, right? Lots of others. You've got LinkedIn, which is sort of like Facebook for the professional community. Moving on to slide 7, there's Pinterest, which is, all the things that I'll never be able to actually own, right? And there are just tons. Everybody, if you move on to slide 8, everybody wants to be the next big thing, right? This is a screen grab that I did a few years ago of all the different sort of budding social networking sites trying to be the next Facebook, trying to figure out how to get people socially networking, and them trying to figure out how they were going to sort of cash in on that, right? And some of them have been successful. You'll see Yelp down there. Other than not so much, right? Came and were gone in a flash. But at the end of the day, they all sort of have a very different. They provide for us as a world a very different way of thinking about interaction. Where before, you could before the TV, before movies, before the printing press, there was no mass communication. You had the town crier, right? You could have one person maybe communicate with 100 people. And then if you sent out a proclamation, it would take weeks or months to get through your whole community to tell people what was going on. And then when the advent of the printing press, you could finally get mass media. You could print a book and give your ideas to thousands of people. And then with the more modern modes of communication, with television and movies, you could have one person be communicating with millions or billions of people. But now we've arrived at a very different place, social media, that literally interconnects everybody together. It's not me talking to you and you talking back to me, and it's not me talking to even all the people like I'm doing right now. We have this social aspect to our communication now, where there's all these interrelated social networks, right? Which changes. It changes how we think, and it changes how we can relate with the world. And there's a lot of really great positive things that social networking does, right? It can provide a sense of community, make you feel connected. One of the big things that makes Wikipedia work is actually a really strong social media presence on that site. They have registered users who post to forums, and they communicate back and forth a lot. And there's this really strong sense of community among the social networking aspect of Wikipedia. It allows you to self-express, right? It allows you to not just be a passive user of television or movies, but reflect back and express yourself to your friends and also to the world, right? It's sort of a powerful mode of that. And it keeps you connected, right? One of the things I like about Facebook is it's like a living, breathing phone book, right? Instead, I just invite a bunch of people with Facebook, or and just to stay connected. I know what's going on with everyone, which is sort of powerful, right? You can be friends with a much wider network of people using social media. And you can then just communicate, reach out and reach a large audience of folks. And not just, with Facebook, but with any social media, right? Like SoundCloud has been a big thing in the music industry. MySpace used to be a thing, not really so much anymore for everyday folks, but has sort of rebranded itself as a music social media site. And so it does just allow for this communicative, this really increase in our ability to reach and communicate with each other without having to go through a gatekeeper, right? You can just put yourself out there and reach people, a huge audience. Like, that's where Justin Bieber came from, right? Not that I'm a huge fan of his music. Or not that I'm criticizing people who like him either, but in any case, Justin Bieber didn't get signed to a record deal. He became incredibly famous on YouTube, right? He was able to get his music out there, and because of that, became wildly successful. Whether or not you think his music is any good, he's certainly been successful, essentially through using social media to reach a potential audience. And my example of Wikipedia also sort of falls under this idea of democratizing innovation and crowdsourcing labor, right? When I had you watch the the video on CAPTCHA, I think that really captures how powerful social media can be. It's this idea that we can all much more easily pool our ideas, pool our resources to come up with much better solutions to problems than any one of us would come up with on our own, right? We can actually be smarter together through social media without any central gatekeeper telling anyone who can participate versus not. And so the rest of this lecture is intended to be a voice of caution. But before I give you that voice of caution, I just wanted you to know that I think social media is amazing, and I think it's a huge step forward, especially given the fact that the mass media is being controlled by fewer and fewer and fewer voices. The idea that there's this alternate source of information, I think, becomes really important. That we can share information with each other is powerful because we're able to less trust the information that we're getting from the corporate media giants, right? So social media is a fantastic innovation. That being said, moving on to slide 10. There are certainly risks, pretty huge risks actually, to using social media and just using the internet in general, but certainly social media. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Tumblr, they can YouTube, they can all be used There are things to be concerned about, right? And there are sort of 4 broad categories of risks, right? The first is malware distribution. Now, what is malware? Well, you may have heard of viruses, but not all malware are viruses. A malware is any computer program written by somebody with malicious intent. That means immoral or unethical or bad intent. So, and it may not be to shut down your computer like a virus. It may be something called a worm that's going to quietly go in through your computer to track what you're doing. Things called Trojan horses, which get into your computer and then track you over time, right? So, and many of them are designed to run quietly in the background without alerting you to their presence at all, right? So malware distribution is something to be concerned about. Social media also opens up the risk of cyberbullying. The word for it is often called trolling, where you're intentionally seeking someone out on social media in order to upset them, right? And it's really tantamount to emotional abuse. And the problem with cyberbullying really is that it's twofold. There's 2 big problems with this idea of online trolling. Is one, people are way worse online than they are in everyday life. Something about the anonymity or the perceived, even if it's not truly anonymous, something about the perceived anonymity of the internet really seems to interfere with people's ability to be kind. It's something like, because you can't see the person's face in front of you, increases the hostility, increases the bad behavior in some very visceral way. And part of it is this process from social psychology called de-individuation. People lose their sense of moral compass often in these sort of anonymous online environments. But the other side of it, the other sort of risk of trolling, is the idea that it used to be that if you were having trouble at school, you could go home and you'd be generally safe, right? Go to school, but then go home and go to the privacy of your own home, and it's a safe space. But now that bullying doesn't leave at the schoolyard, right? It doesn't stop at the schoolyard, or if you're having trouble in your neighborhood, it doesn't stop at the front door. The bullying comes into your house and into your computer. And so this leaves young people with a sort of a tough choice, right? Leaves young people with the choice to either not be online and so be socially isolated as social pariah, or leave themselves open to this emotional abuse. And so so that's another thing to recognize, another sort of thing to be concerned about in online settings. The third sort of thing to think about is something called the shelf life of information. Once something goes onto the internet, it really lives there forever. Like, that's what we mean by shelf life. Meaning, if you post something on the internet, even if you delete it, it's still there, it's still there. And if you're interested, there's actually something called the Wayback Machine. You can actually tell it to show you what different websites looked like at different time periods. Like, show me Google on May 7th, 2012, and it'll show you. Because the internet is not one place, right? The internet is interconnected computers, servers. And even if you delete it off this one web page, right, it still exists on that server forever, right? Unless somebody actually goes in there to manually delete it, it lives there forever. Forever. So be careful what you put on the internet, because it's going to live there forever. The last thing to be concerned about is privacy, right? You have to be worried about what you post, but in the world of social media, other people can post about you, tag you in pictures, tag you in posts, tweet at you, right? And then you're guilty by association, right? So it's not just you, but because it's social media, what your friends post and what your friends think reflects on you, right? And and maybe you can set everything in your profile to private, but the minute you post on your friend's public status update, now your thoughts are out there in the public sphere. So you got to be concerned not just about yourself, but your friends as well. And at the end of the day, nothing is private from the website itself, right? You can set everything to private, and Facebook or Twitter or LinkedIn or Pinterest or Instagram or Tumblr owns all of it. They own all of it. It's their website. You agree to it. And they are going to take your information and they are going to sell it to the highest bidder. It's how it goes. It's how they make money. Something to keep in the back of your head is, if you're not paying for something, you are the product, right? Think about TV. TV for years was free, because what were they really buying and selling? Your eyeballs. It's the same thing with Facebook. What they're selling are ads. They're selling you. They're buying and selling you. And all free social media sites are doing just that. They're buying and selling you. If you're not paying for it, you're the product. So moving on to slide 11. When you think about social media, sort of be aware of all the different things, right, that can be a problem. The four that I mentioned are sort of the biggest, most common problems, right? But there are other things as well, right? Oftentimes, Facebook has been criticized for curating your Facebook feeds and where you're not actually seeing all the posts, or giving you suggested posts from advertisers, right? So this idea of social engineering, but also identity theft, just fraud. Other people can, you can get viruses on your computer. People can stalk you using social media. Sexual predators will often use social media to target children. You can get sued for the things you post on social media, not to mention if you post something maybe inappropriate, maybe your significant other would be mad at you. Just keep in mind that say it, forget it, write it on the internet, and who knows what's going to happen. There's this really great TED Talk by actually Monica Lewinsky, who had an affair with Bill Clinton in the 90s. She was a White House intern. She was like 22 at the time. And she made some questionable life choices, and she was publicly shamed for it, right? But in some sense, because we seem to in our culture have sort of this love affair with shame. And the internet has just become a giant tool for that. When somebody does something bad on the internet, suddenly they become the worst person in the world. And I got to tell you, I'm really glad that I came of age before Facebook. I'm glad that I came of age in the 90s before my entire life was all over the internet for everyone to see, right? I made bad decisions. Everyone makes bad decisions. But now all of our bad decisions are all over the internet for everyone to see. which is a problem, right? There was this woman who tweeted a really off-color joke about AIDS in Africa. She tweeted it before getting on a plane, and it was a bad joke. It was insensitive, but she got off the plane as the worst person in the world. People were throwing mad hate at her. She lost her job, all because she made an insensitive tweet. How do you deal with that, man? If you make an off-color joke at a party, someone may come up to you later and say, hey, that was not cool. And you're like, oh, I'm sorry. But if you tweet it, now the entire world can see your worst moment, and it lives forever, right? She's always going to be the lady who made the Africa tweet. And in every job interview she's ever going to go on, she's the lady who made the Africa tweet, right? And it's all of these sort of examples, and they're everywhere. And they're everywhere. And people are just unwise, right? So you got to be careful be careful what you post on the internet, right? You got to be careful what you post on the internet. For example, keep in mind that a lot of these social media sites are by default completely open, meaning everything you post on them, anyone in the world can see. That's sort of their business model. Everyone in the world can see what you post, like Twitter. Everything you tweet, everyone in the world can see. And here are real examples from kind of a long time ago, because I think people are a little smarter now. At least I hope they are. But here's real examples of people using Twitter to announce to the world that they were going on vacation, and when they'd be gone, and where they were going, and how long they'd be gone. So please, this 2-week period would be a great time to come to my house and take my stuff. Seriously? You're going to post your vacation plans on this completely public forum? Probably not smart. Just saying. And even if you don't do it on Twitter, let's say you post your vacation plans on Facebook, right? And you're splashing all your pictures of your vacation on Facebook. Do you personally know every single person you're connected to on social media? Something to think about. And just keep in mind that try to think and why do I share this with you? Because a good critical thinker is aware. A good critical thinker is aware of the risks and dangers and then makes decisions knowing what the risks and dangers are, right? And so I want you to just think about, as you use the internet and as you use social media, what are the unintended consequences, right? What are the unintended consequences of your actions? And what are the unintended consequences of putting it out there, right? And here are real examples of people who posted something on the internet and lost their jobs. There was this guy essentially he was working for a PR firm, and on his blog he wrote, "True confession, I'm in one of those towns where I scratched my head and said I would have to die if I lived here," and he was actually dissing Memphis, and he lost the account for his company and he was fired, right? I mean, people check your social media feed, right? And so the company he was working for had contracted to do PR, right? And the company, who was a client, checked his online presence, saw that he was essentially insulting their city, and he lost his company the contract. And then, of course, he lost his job. Not a good idea, right? Or how about this one? How to lose a job with one tweet. Here's someone who posted on his blog, or he posted on his Twitter feed. Cisco just offered me a job. Now I have to weigh the utility of a fat paycheck against the daily commute to San Jose and hating the work. Yeah, he didn't keep getting that job offer, right? Cisco didn't want him to work there anymore. People check these things, right? The IRS is using Facebook and other social media sites to track and to track down people who are evading their taxes. Miss New Jersey was blackmailed for some pictures that she posted on Facebook, and they weren't even racy pictures. They were just she was being blackmailed for her associations, right? There was and then there was a woman who was fired from her teaching job. Her name was Stacy Snyder, and she's actually the one in the picture. And she was, this was back in MySpace. This was actually a while ago. This was back in 2005. She was a teacher, and she was at a party, and people go to parties, and she had posted this picture on her MySpace page, and her friend had commented on it, like, ha ha ha, look at the drunken pirate. This wasn't even something that she had done, right? And essentially, and she was a high school teacher. What they said was that she was promoting underage drinking, because on her MySpace page, what happened to be publicly viewable, there was this comment, ha ha ha, drunken pirate. She lost her job. And we can say that's horrible. That's terrible. She shouldn't have lost her job. And she did, in fact, file suit. But it doesn't change the fact that because of this one picture, her whole life became a tailspin, right? And she didn't actually get a teaching certificate, right? And she was actually drummed out of the teaching profession. And that's just, and we can say how horrible that is, but it's the law of unintended consequences, right? So you just gotta be careful. You gotta be careful what you put out there, man. Say it, forget it. Write it, regret it. So moving on to 14. Let's dive a little, slide 14. Let's dive a little deeper into this idea of malware distribution. So there's just a million different ways that computer programmers are trying to figure out how to put malicious software onto your computer to try to separate you from your money. And social media is a big fat target because everyone's using it, right? And if everyone is using something, it becomes a compelling and enticing mode by which malicious software engineers try to get malicious software onto your computer, malware, right? And so if you think about social media, there can be advertisements that actually have malware in them, where if you click, you can essentially, if you click on something, that can actually download your information, and they can actually clickjack you, right? And then sort of take over your computer. But it doesn't just have to be advertisements. It can be wall posts or chat messages or friends who've had their own accounts compromised are sending you links and requests that then download the malicious software onto your computer, right? It's all the things. Like, for example, I once got an email from a friend that said, "Oh, my wallet is stolen and I'm in Europe." And I'm like, "You're in Europe? Since when are you in Europe?" And it turned out that his account had been hijacked, and they were trying to get people to click on the link and send him money. It wasn't successful, thank goodness, but they do this with tons of people, right? And he were able to get his information from Facebook, from social media sites, right? And oftentimes social media is used as a mask for phishing emails, to phish, P-H-I-S-H. Phishing emails will somehow seem to come from Facebook, or they seem to come from Twitter, and in reality they come from malicious hackers. Just remember that because everyone is using social media becomes a compelling, enticing tool for sort of malicious software engineers to try to target your computers. And here are some examples of real people who were caught distributing malware using social media. This is kind of an old one. There was a new social media service and a malware distribution site. A malware distribution person used it to try to invite people to this site, and in reality they were downloading malicious software that was tracking the keystrokes on their computers. There have been others, like Twitter. They had a big one. Facebook, they also had a big one. The original malware that targeted social media was actually all the way back from 2008. Kubeface essentially was written specifically for Facebook. And it's still around. They are still using this sort of malware distribution, and what they do is they use ads. They use ads and third-party applications to sort of distribute this software, where you think you're clicking on an ad and you are, but inside the ad is essentially malware that then can either track your keystrokes or enslave your computer, and then use your computer to send out spam without you knowing it. Basically enslaves your computer, right? And it's not just Facebook ads, but also those third-party applications that you sometimes click on, and they're like, oh, you're leaving Facebook. Do you want to let this third-party person have access to all your things? And then, like, if you want to use whatever it is that it is, if you want to use the third-party application, whether it's a quiz or a game, Farmville, Mafia Wars, whatever it is, you're agreeing to sort of give over your autonomy to these third-party application providers, which may or may not be ethical. And Facebook is really under no obligation to make sure that a third-party programmer isn't downloading malicious software onto your computer. And I mean, just let's be real. There's really no such thing as privacy on social media. And the privacy protection policies are just a joke, right? Privacy is defined as the claim of individuals, groups, or institutions to determine for themselves when and how and to the extent our information is communicated to others. Yeah, you don't get to decide that with Facebook. You don't get to decide that with Twitter. You put it out there, you don't get to decide what happens to that information. It doesn't belong to you anymore. It belongs to the website, right? And if you want to know who's checking your social media presence, slide 18, if you want to know who is checking up on you, the answer is everyone, right? Have you ever Facebook stalked an ex? Have you ever Facebook stalked a person you were, or internet stalked? Googled the name of someone you were about to go on a date with? Googled the name of somebody from forever ago just to sort of see what was up with them? Yep, totally a thing. But friends, family, friends of friends, your parents, and employers. Absolutely. Back in 2010, there was a study that was commissioned by Microsoft that discovered that 80% of potential employers, this was back in 2010, maybe everybody now, but back in 2010, 80% of employers said they absolutely Googled someone. They absolutely checked their social media presence. They absolutely did that. And another study back in 2010 from CareerBuilder found that almost half of people in charge of hiring said they had found something online that made them think again about hiring someone. So almost everyone is checking on you, and half of managers admit that they saw something online that made them decide not to hire someone. Absolutely, employers are checking up on you. But if you sell things, your customers are. If you're applying to college, you bet those admissions committees, those universities are checking your online presence. Marketers to try to figure out who to sell stuff to. Criminals, the government, all the people, right? Our presence is out there. Our online presence is out there. In fact, there are even services you can pay for now that will try to make sure that your internet presence is like all hunky-dory. Like Reputation.com is one of them. But I don't know how good they are at it. I don't use any of these services, but they exist. And they exist for just this reason. Everyone is checking up on everyone else using online media. And just an example from my own life, I once had sort of a real estate a person essentially break a contract with me, and because it was over an anonymous medium, a relatively anonymous medium, she thought she could essentially cheat me and get away with it. And and because of my super fabulous internet sleuth skills, I was able to figure out who she was in about 30 seconds, and it was at a price tag of about $7. I was able to find out exactly who she was, and was able to leave a negative review for her about my real estate transaction, because she was a real estate agent, and she had essentially cheated me in a real estate transaction. She thought she was protected by not putting her name out there, but she put her phone number, she put her business contact address, she just didn't put her name. Took me 30 seconds to find out who she was so I could post a negative review. Your information is out there, man, and anyone can get it. So be careful what you put out there. And so on slide 19, what I have for you is one of the essentially the privacy protection policy from Facebook. At least as it was originally written. You hereby grant Facebook an irrevocable, perpetual, non-exclusive, transferable, fully paid worldwide license with the right to sub-license, use, copy, public stream, store, retain, publicly perform or display, transmit, scan, edit, frame, translate, export, adapt, create derivative works of. We own you, is what that says. That says whatever you post on Facebook belongs to Facebook. Anything you post on Facebook belongs to Facebook, right? All the things, right? And they can use anything you post on Facebook for their use. Once you put it on Facebook, this is the user agreement that their original user agreement that you sign. And they're always coming out with new user agreements. It's so hard to keep up. But their original intent is to own everything, and they are not unique. Slide 19. Here is the same privacy protection policy. Privacy protection. They're not there to protect your privacy, right? Additionally, you grant LinkedIn a non-exclusive, irrevocable, worldwide, perpetual. Hey, this is starting to sound the same. Unlimited, unassignable, sub-licensable. We own everything you post on LinkedIn, and we will sell it to anyone we want. Third party. Yeah. Yeah, anything you post belongs to us. That's what LinkedIn is. And because this is their business model, right? They're not a charity. They're not a not-for-profit. They need to connect your information to advertisers so they can make money off you. This is how they make money, right? And you agree to it. When you sign up for Facebook, when you sign up for Twitter, when you sign up for LinkedIn, you agree to give them your information that they will then sell and make no apologies about it to third parties to better market to you. And it's not illegal. It's not illegal. In 2010, they were actually, Facebook and other websites were sued for selling people's information, and they won. They're allowed to do this because you agree to it when you sign up for the service. And so in slide 21 and slide 22, or rather slide 21, if you sort of, it's got two layers. And so if you look at sort of 2005 to 2014, if you like do full screen, and you can actually click through the different layers, you can actually see how Facebook evolved. In 2005, almost nothing was by default public, right? Almost nothing. That's what this sort of wheel shows you. In 2005, the only things, nothing was by default completely public, right? But only 4 things were even viewable by all Facebook users: your name, picture, gender, and the networks you were in. By 2014, everything was by default completely public, meaning the entire internet could see your networks, your wall posts, your photos, your likes, your name, your picture, your gender, and all other profile data, as well as who all of your friends were, unless you went in there to override that that default setting. And so you just got to be careful. You got to learn to familiarize yourself with the privacy settings on these various social media sites. You got to tell Facebook, I don't want anyone to see any of my stuff unless I tell them to. I don't want them to see my Facebook posts. I don't want them to see my friends. I don't want them to see my contact information unless they're friends with me, right? But you got to tell Facebook that, because by default, everything is public. Because then they can sell more stuff. Monetize you. Monetize means how to figure out how to make money off something. Right? And so here on slide 22 is a screen capture I did of the privacy settings page from Facebook. Make yourself familiar with it. They update it. They update it every once in a while, so it's a good idea to go back and just check it every once in a while, and not just on Facebook, but on any social media site you belong to. Go and check to see which information about you is private, which information about you is public, and whether or not you can go in there and change your privacy settings to give yourself some sense of protection. On slide 23 is just another sort of small thing I want you to be aware of, is there are these services that can allow you to take really long websites and shorten their names so that you don't really have any idea the kind of website you're navigating to. And these are bit, tiny, read this, bit URLs and tiny URLs. They essentially hide the true destination of where you're going to end up. That's what a URL is. It's an internet address. And so even if the website doesn't look strange, if it's got one of these truncated URLs like bit or tiny, you might want to think before you click. Right? Because it might very well be a masked website. And slide 24, I just want you to pay careful attention, super, super careful attention to third-party applications on Facebook. Because they're not a part of Facebook. They're just not. And Facebook is literally under no obligation to make sure that third-party applications are not harmful. They're under no obligation to do that. So you got to make sure that if you're about to click on Farmville, click on Country Live, click on Mafia Wars, click on a BuzzFeed quiz, click on a whatever, that you're not really downloading just malicious software onto your computer. Because Facebook doesn't check these websites. They're completely independent. There's no privacy protections, no terms and conditions. You're just putting yourself out there and giving them access to everything on your profile. So now, the last thing I sort of want to talk about is how, as good critical thinkers, we ought to think about social media. And as you move forward in your life, think about what kind of laws you think should be in place in regards to social media. There are some things that are on the books, right? Like copyright protections, protect YouTube, right? You can get your YouTube things shut down if you're posting copyrighted information on them. But you also can get prosecuted if you post copyright information on Facebook. And so be cautious. And do you think that's okay? Do you think someone who posts a video on YouTube that's not theirs should be prosecuted under copyright violations? It's hard to say, right? You're not making any money. You're just sort of sharing this thing. Technically, children under the age of 13 have limited use of social media. It's called the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act. Websites like Facebook are technically not supposed to allow children that young to use them, but it's not like they're carting you at the door, right? What do you do about that, right? Who do you hold accountable? Do you hold Facebook accountable for the fact that underage kids are using their service and lying about their age? It's hard to say. There are more and more cyberbullying and cyber stalking laws, right? And I'm sure there's going to be more to come, right? And what do you think about that? How much should social media be regulated, right? It's hard to say. And in your own life, slide 26. Who are you going to friend? Right? Who are you going to let follow you? Who are you going to follow? If your boss wants to be your friend, are you going to let your boss be your friend? If you are ever on a hiring committee, are you going to Google their name? How about if you're a teacher? If you ever become a teacher or faculty member, should you friend your students? If you're a student, should you friend your professor? I don't know, right? But these are ethical considerations that you should think about, and you should make decisions before you're staring at your computer screen, having to decide what to do about an incoming friend request, or it becomes clear that someone you work for is following you, or it becomes clear that that someone you work for or a coworker is following your tweets. Got to think about these ethical issues. And so I've got some tips and tricks on slides 26 and 28. And a lot of these are just common sense, but in case you've never sort of considered these things, here are my tips and tricks for you. Use a unique password for your social media sites. You should not use the same password for your bank as you do for Facebook or Twitter, right? And it'd be a good idea not to use the same password for Facebook and Twitter and all the different sites. Have different unique passwords for these particularly risky social media sites. Because remember, they have great big targets on their back. When malicious programmers design malware, they often design with social media in mind, right? And so use unique, strong passwords for social media specifically, so that the password you have for Facebook is only for Facebook, and the password you have for Twitter is only for Twitter. In case that website gets compromised, no other aspect of your life will suffer. Try to not put all of your personal information online, especially that kind of personal information that might be used to verify an identity and then allow an identity thief to commit fraud. Become familiar with the privacy settings on Facebook. I don't use third-party applications, right? Because then they end up posting on my behalf, and you end up with your Facebook feed full of these advertisements. It's just a nightmare, even independent of the fact that they can often be malware. Be very, very, very cautious with third-party applications. And just think before you post. Don't post embarrassing pictures of yourself. Don't let your friends tag you in embarrassing pictures. Don't post on controversial topics if you're hoping to try to get a job, or you can be fired for your opinions on controversial topics. Don't complain about your coworkers or your boss or your professors, because I promise you it will come back to bite you in the tuchus. It will come back to bite you. So you want to avoid it. And certainly don't post anything about where you work, right? That's just colossally stupid. Moving on to slide 28, be wary of chat messages that don't make sense. Be wary of party invitations that don't make sense, right? Why is my friend saying he's in London and needs money? This is so strange. Because it probably is strange. And just think before you click, right? Don't just click on any link that looks compelling, because you never know when it's going to be some malicious software. A lot of browsers actually have built-in sort of screening software to sort of filter out the ads and filter out the possible malicious links. And so you might want to consider using one of those, unless you're just like a huge fan of online advertisements, right? You can actually sort of block them, which then significantly minimizes your risk. And there are actually reputation services out there. Might want to consider, if you're looking for a job, employing one of them, right? I've never done it, but I hear good things. And just Google yourself. Just Google yourself and go like to the 2nd and 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th page and see what you find, because that's what employers are going to find, and that's what old boyfriends and girlfriends are going to find, and family members you haven't talked to in a decade. Just Google yourself, see what you find. If you want to delete your Facebook account, if you want to deactivate Twitter, if you want to no longer have a Pinterest account, if you don't want to be on OkCupid anymore, they make it hard. They make it super hard to delete your account. So be aware of that. You can deactivate your Facebook account, and all you have to do is log back in, and they have saved it all for you. If you want to delete your Twitter or Facebook account, you have to do it in writing. There's no point and click option for deactivating your Facebook account. You have to write them a letter in writing asking them to delete your account, and it can still take 2 weeks to 30 days for them to permanently delete it. And it might not actually get permanently deleted. Just saying. Right? And the last thing I want to leave you with about sort of using social media responsibly is not everything you read on the internet is true. Not everything that comes across your social media feed is accurate. If something comes through your Facebook feed or your Tumblr feed or your Imgur feed or whatever it is, Reddit, insert the things here, right? If something comes into if someone has shared some piece of information with you on your social media feed, it doesn't make it true. And as a good critical thinker, you now have the tools to check up on these things you post on the internet, right? Check on these things. And I'm guilty of it. We're all guilty of it, right? But don't repost something and contribute to worldwide stupidity without checking to make sure that what you're posting is true. Think before you share. Think before you retweet, because it will come back to haunt you. And last but not least, please be aware, I think social media is awesome, right? And the dangers, I want you to be aware of them, but for the most part, it's probably going to be fine. You're probably going to be fine. The dangers are not so big that I'm going to suggest people not use social media. You can share and create and build and maintain friendships, innovate, learn, crowdsource. It's fun. It's awesome. It's amazing. Social media is amazing. But you got to use it with caution. You just gotta, right? Otherwise, say it, forget it, but if you write it, especially on social media, you may end up regretting what you wrote. Think before you click. The last thing I want to encourage you to go watch is a TED Talk. And here's a link to that TED Talk on slide 32, which really sort of also highlights how amazing and awesome this new, well, it's not new, it's been around for almost 10 years now, over 10 years, but how really amazing our modern tool of social media is, right? It's a great TED Talk, which is essentially how Facebook and Twitter and social media is really a force for good. But like all great power, to quote Stan Lee from Spider-Man, with all great power comes great responsibility. All right, that's it. That's our last topic before our third exam. And then after our third exam, we have 3 cool topics, which will be our new information that will be incorporated into the final. And so I will see you after the third exam. Have a good one, critical thinkers.